investment in the new container terminal in Ghana's books is $1.5 billion. But at the London office, it is $667 million. So French investigators continue to ask this question: where did the rest of the money go? The way a Ghana charge sheet in the Edaho, the French court, criminal court. That's to say, a dito go the enemy, or differ, or so, or Yaman or Pine, Yaman into ya, almost there be Yendi Ghana and the Yakan so soon a boa. Ya charge one cassa for fraud and corruption near whom maybe a man over. And any desire case yachi.
Obi bebusa say adentini atwa no Mahama adamfo. O papa ya obai Tema port yi ko oba betoi. Musa munyina mo ka papa yi. Ali case na beto a se kopie France ya. Se ya ye ka sei o ma charge ne se fraud bi o di dwrim bi wo ho a enya asem keto a corruption akoso nso wo Tema port nso ni nyina ba abonten wo France court. Ya asem o yenkwai na menua ba ko ensem pi ene wo be chirichiri mu. Na de wi a wo chira asem ni de wi wo ka asem de netum se ano wo den. Yeso wo panyini no dwirimu bi a wadi ene Ghana kura no do abeye wo ha no ya asemu
wo do ani chiremu e wo France abrochima mu a na chese trial ashase gidi involving a French businessman. In fact, the D ewo Ghana nkratem in 2017 and a chairman Kwame Bafoya do na friend abronye release information based on evidence. Ya na echere say former President John Mahama then Eton Tema Port Edema, a French business millionaire investor, ya your friend Vincent Bolloré. The NDC move heaven and earth to catch the Ghana for say a tro the MPP for and a jandam said ya no mutai canon. But you say no krewo hui. Hey, okwa soroba formua. In due time, it will resurface. Ebepi. Enra epi. France court ye freno the Criminal Court de France. Criminal Court de France. Ya one are responsible for trying cases involving serious international crimes, international fraud, and corruption. You know, and no more fresh asabi. Now, interestingly, Vincent Bolloré and Okopiemo ewo the Criminal Court de France for fraud, corruption, and money laundering in the purchasing of 5 major ports in West Africa. 5 major ports in West Africa. Now, in fact, Osha Krataya Damanimia, a Ghana port, Tema port, the Lomé port in Togo, Conakry port in Guinea, the Abidjan port in La Côte d'Ivoire, and the Yaoundé port in Cameroon. The Ghana, Togo, Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire, and Cameroon. 5. All these 5 ports in these 5 African countries, notably West African countries, in Akwa di Vincent Bolloré Densa. Now, according to French agency, dealing in fraud, corruption, and money laundering. 5 ports in no purchase na enam kwa paso. Now, interestingly, group eka omo ho bo mu di asemi ekopie mu wo French court no ye from coalition of African groups made up of 8 renowned lawyers. Now omo file fraud complaints editor French billionaire Vincent Bolloré and the man baako accusing them of illegally obtaining the right to operate ports through the engaging of corruption, fraud, and money laundering in 5 African countries, namely Ghana, Togo, Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire, and Cameroon. Accusing Vincent Bolloré of illegally obtaining and benefiting from port concessions in these respective countries. Now, documentary, first of all, mami nipa hodo ane pese e follow story sa na me di emma mono mami emfa ne sources no emfa mono 4 different sources baby a obetumi ahwe e de free ubenya this story I'm making kind oko France 24 bosha honomo fraud complaint target French billionaire Vincent Bolloré Africa Port Deals ubenya sa story afi oko the African Confidential Magazine.com so a ehon so no obo e de say French billionaire Vincent Bolloré charged for fraud, money laundering and corruption in the obtaining of 5 of West Africa's biggest ports. And also story ni ewo ho na oko radio.com and also bo say French billionaire with business interest in Ghana Vincent Bolloré charged for fraud over African port. And also story no ewo ho to France 24, the African Confidential Magazine, radio.com, and dwtv.com. All these 5 sources. And the story ya make one semi ebebremo. O share your pictures near school nusua. My screenshot to some portions of the story over to me a follow. Now let's continue with the story. Now, according to the story, Vincent Bolloré and the group to me a purchase concession of 5 of West Africa's major ports, including the Tema port. Yeah, according to the charge sheet, Ghana Diano happened during the first term in office of President John Mahama. Bolloré's group's African port and logistics businesses, which the tycoon sold off in 2022, employed more than 20,000 people in 20 African countries. It operated 16 ports, warehouses, and transport hubs across the continent. Now, the banner friend is C0rruption Bolloré, Vincent, the youngest son, on the head of Bolloré Africa Logistics in 2019. Take it over from Papa. Now, according to France Anti-Corruption Agency, French investigators have already looked into allegations that the Bolloré Group had, through its consulting businesses, illegally backed the 2010 presidential campaigns of Faure Gnassingbé in Togo and Alpha Condé in Guinea in exchange for port concessions in Lomé and Conakry. Bolloré pleaded guilty at the French court for these 2 ports and through his group of lawyers managed to negotiate a settlement. But French financial prosecutors in 2024 requested that Vincent Bolloré be tried on charges of corruption and complicity in breach of trust. The complaint now accuses Bolloré of corruption, benefiting from influence peddling and the unlawful taking of ports through the interest of local officials in Ghana, Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire. It charges that this is how the group obtained concessions to run the port of Tema in Ghana, Douala and Kribi in Cameroon, Abidjan and Yamoussoukro in Cote d'Ivoire. The collective alleges that the 2022 sale of Bolloré Africa Logistics, which profits came from these allegedly illegally obtained port concessions, amounted to money laundering. France for omo anti-corruption agency, so omo ye hwehwemu no e no hu say Togo krade Vincent Bolloré answer na nse be ka Lomé port no or sponsor the then 2010 presidential candidate friend of Faure Gnassingbé. Ono na sponsor an entire campaign e ma na we ni ye and in exchange omo Daniel Lomé port no de ma and osaba Guinea be sponsor Alpha Condé and ono so we ni ye and ono so Daniel Conakry port no de ma and ono so manya hwehwemu ahunu say sa influence no abi ne course o countries bi te say Ghana ya ye no so Tema port Bolore Sakai. Ebi koso ewo Cameroon Yaounde any Kibri and a honson in Sakai. And a bin so ebe koso ewo Abidjan and so in Sakai. And according to them, Obuapa in 2022, ASA Waton company no French investigators here. Investigation moon said company they say on one kasane ba ketwa. And a waje with Yaman say waton. Yeah, no crown no so no. It amounted to money laundering. Bolor's holding company sold Bolor African Logistics to the MSC Shipping Group, which was being owned by his younger son, for 5.7 billion euro, that is $6.05 billion in 2022. It was thought that at the time to be the mainstay of the tycoon's fortune. Bolor and his family are estimated to be worth $9.9 billion according to Fox. He is now facing charges of corruption, money laundering, and fraud in all attempts to acquire ports in Tema, Douala, Kibri, and Abidjan in the French criminal court. In 2021, he was accused of fraud. According to a special report, Vincent obtained the right to build and run a state-of-the-art container terminal at Ghana's Tema port. The report also linked Bolor's concession of Ghana's port to one he won for his operations at the port of Lomé, Togo, in return for financing the re-election of the country's president, Faure Gnassingbé, in 2010. That's some kitwa Vincent Bolore. Enunti o share document na omo charge sheet for nioma oyeye ewo Lomé, Togo. Charge sheet for nioma oyeye Abidjan, la Côte d'Ivoire. Charge sheet for nioma oyeye wo Douala and Kibri in Cameroon. But yes, ni nyina hu hiaye. Ye zoom straight to the charge sheet of a nioma Vincent Bolore. Ebeyeye ewo Ghana otumi di acquire Tema port eni ogina mranimu ewo French court, criminal court. Ya offensive charges of fraud, corruption, and money laundering in the acquisition of our own Tema port. Na case ye boy we are this scandal. Yes, so we are best in Airbus because Vincent Bolore wa did dream mankasa. You hear Ghana here. Charge sheet lawyers no presented for Ghana there no in the acquisition of Tema port today. E ye bro for making kind na ma to me boase na ma chichiri mo. Bolor had an ally who was his oldest Ghanaian friend called Alhaji Asoma Banda, probably Ghana's most prominent shipping and logistics magnate. Banda introduced Vincent to Ghana in the early 90s. Banda was the CEO of Port Handling Company and also a director of a local Bolor subsidiary, Antrak Limited. In 1999, he sold his shipping line, OT Africa Line, to Bolor when the Frenchman was scooping up most of the other regional shipping lines. Bolor's success at Tema is built, according to investigators, on identical foundations to the rest of his West African empire. Alhaji Asoma Banda helped Bolor connect with then President Mahama. Enti kwanya then President Mahama ehunu Vincent Bolor ya sa deals ni nyina ko so ma yeton Tema port no. According to French investigators, Alhaji Asoma Banda ya na sia wanya de be kro. Through him a creative link because Bolor no oba Ghana nye no. You see the early 90s. No ba ye nyina so ni Asoma Banda se fa shipping lines ho and shipping logistics there Ghana ha ono ni nipa. In fact, otintimu e was adwuma ni mu. Enti through Asoma Banda and Vincent Bolor ene Mahama ebeye namfo yento aso. President Mahama Banda helped Balo connect with President Mahama, and his reward included the chairmanship of Meridian Port Services, the key Balo vehicle in Ghana, and operator of the new container terminal at the Tema port. He also holds, without ever having paid for it, 12.9% of MP's parent company Meridian Port Holdings in a stake shrouded. The secret ministerial report said within the shareholdings of Bolo and APTM. It according to the French investigators, and now say Asoma Banda a middleman. Now Bolo, etumene President Mahama Shia eventually a Tema port of Manua, and they the terminal Meridian Port Services, a Bolo dia operating into Asoma Banda after the whole deal, and 12.9% shares in the company. According to the report, Wanya Jumabia just introducing Bolo to President Mahama. On the 13th of November 2014, President Mahama changed the game. Meridian Port Services, being owned by Bolo, had made Mahama an offer that it would build, finance, and operate a new container port at the Tema port, so long as it was awarded the contract immediately. And in 2014, another year pay company Tema Port Niswa or buy more Bible we are assigned as an additional port service, an additional port terminal. Sorry, and you know near Meridian Port Service and a balodia. And the two mo say or mubesi or more finance now or more operate port to some time. After that time. Na ababa be Ghana dia. Na yentie ha interestingly. The contract was immediately awarded to Balo exclusively and without tendering or competitive bidding, according to French investigators. President Mahama accepted awarding the contract to MPS by diktat, investigators said, or in secret. A high aide in the office of the president, one highly placed expert on the affair, told French investigators and Africa Confidential magazine that the president instructed the acting director of Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Richard Anamo, to discontinue the tendering of all other companies and solely engage with MPS. This was illegal by all the rules of government procurement. What it meant was that 56 companies, 20 of which had already been shortlisted for the construction contract, had wasted their time. Another 15 had bid for the operating contract. And Ghana's civil servant had also wasted vast amount of time. MPS had previously shown no interest in bidding or pre-qualified, but they were awarded the contract. Bahama's decision was not recorded. The investigators sought high and low through government records, but could find no written proof of the order. When Africa Confidential magazine asked ex-President Mahama then representative if the former head of state would explain the secret decision, they received no reply. However, 2 days later, President Mahama's media team filmed a video at State House to celebrate the award of the port project to MPS and posted it on YouTube 2 days later. In it, the president, John Mahama, is shown celebrating the award with Anamo, Yahweh GPH boss, and MPS CEO Mohammed Samara and its chairman Alhaji Asma Banda. President Mahama congratulates the parties on the deal, and Banda talks of being the happiest man that the project is going ahead because he was going to owe 12.9% of Meridian Port Holdings, which he never paid for. A few months later, MPS won the contracts. The concession agreement between Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and MPS, which governed how MPS operated in the port, was again altered by a deed of amendment. The ministerial report homes in on the deed of amendment as a crucial document which radically changed the balance of power between Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and the private company, hugely in the company's favor. The deed of amendment no krano, yes, sign contract in a few months. Now, almost sano, no, almost sano, no, details about it. At first, Meridian Port Services was supposed to run the port terminal for 30 years. Tomo run the terminal for 30 years because someone do musika SC. Aye, Tomo operate for 30 years. That is what Tomo ka no man done diamai. In the new deed, SSF free 30 years, equal 35 years. Now, interestingly, according to French investigators, contract ni muno na wasenka almost 30 years no ya na ye the initial contract no and kesha free 2007. But from 2007, Meridian Port Services ye juma go my Ghana ye omo ye juma go ya bogi semu sa contract na shase ho but e ko shase e was 2019 because omo we port no it was commissioned on 2019 until almost 30 according to the contract from 2019 when the new terminal was commissioned. But the original contract stated that immediately I signed contract no 30 years no as I say ye juma. But oboko ye deed of amendment no contract no be shase after the commission of the new terminal, which is 2019. Until 2019 for 35 years this is how long Meridian Port Services ya jai Tema port no at the amawo. Yet also, according to the investigators, over the life of the concession agreement, the report calculates $7.98 billion in fees that will be accrued to GPHA. And according to the concession, GPHA, Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, and Faswa Kakra, ye benya free so. Bro, mo ya juma ni nyina no ye share kakra benya because enya se na 100% ni nyina come balon. Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority na omo percentage kakra and a balon is what percentage kakra. Ye to so abehun percentages no. But according to the percentage na nka eba Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority through this concession agreement no. Na nka Faswa o ma Ghana benya wum $7.9 billion. But after the amendment of the deed no tie de ekoba. But after the deed of amendment was signed, this reduced to $3.9 billion, meaning a net cost of $4.1 billion was totally lost to GPH. The $7.9 billion and can buy your Ghana and Faswa Yebenya from this concession agreement. No, Omokwasi sa amendment no ama parliament kura will be a so take the about $3.9 billion, meaning say Ghana actually $4.1 billion. This is the sum that the government report said the government should try to claw back from MPS or at least to negotiate over after Parliament got to know it. But our checks revealed that no negotiations took place. Into 4.1 billion after the deed of amendment. Yeah, say you bet to us what your negotiations be at the Kudientia ye deed of amendment our minor says. I have said na asem kasero. GPHA, according to the concession agreement, na Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, ewo 30% equity ewo venture nim. And now Meridian Port Services or Mwadu Musika, build terminal na ye expansion ni bibiana ekra 70% equity in the venture. But here, according to our investigations, series of meetings between government of Ghana officials and MPS shareholders took place in Amsterdam in May and June 2016. MPS issued more shares, which reduced Ghana Port and Harbours Authority's equity from 30% to 15% overnight. Tieha was in public, according to French investigations. However, Ghana's parliament the media and the government continue to refer to GPH's 30% share, but in actual sense, the share had been reduced to 15%. And according to French investigators, meetings bebrebe koso ewo Amsterdam, obuko to May 2016, obuko to June 2016. After the meeting, 30% equity share no crown so ye Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority diam. A so free 30 by 50 ebo pay. Ya hunu kwan ya negotiations course so ma yen 30 no kra yen say can a society by 50 already $4.1 billion ye Ghana faso krabasa yen hunu ho kira kwan obi anya na adwene say obeye negotiations bia hwe I said the kodienti Ghana elusu says scam equity share of 30% no so ye Ghana Port and Harbours Authority dia in this concession agreement no so e so hwan dia ba 15 say pay. Yeah, according to the report, Ghana mrasebedwa media Ghana ba mu penifo kwa abontia omunka that's why da Ghana for ka kire say Ghana Port and Harbours Authority ewo 30% equity share ewo concession agreement any Meridian Port Services sign, but in actuality e 15 per in the nikitai. Another damning revelation French investigators made. In Ghana's parliament, MPs were told that the entire concession agreement was to be a $1.5 billion investment and that the government should waive $832 million in taxes over the life of the concession to show goodwill towards foreign investors. Omosa can say sika MPS for investment in the expansion, the building of a new terminal, and in the manuma nyinano. Ombeboka $1.5 billion. Enunti said the bay betcha say ye wo Ghana for ye trimu adwene pa towards foreign investors in Tino. Yen wave taxes wasn't como say tuadema ye $832 million. Yen shigu kwa because ye chere abrofo ne say ye wa adwene pa towards foreign investors. Ye ready you see. As of October 2020, when MPS parent company Meridian Port Holdings filed annual returns at London's Companies House, the total investment at the time of reporting was $761 million, less than half the sum Ghana's parliament was first told was being invested. But Oboko United Kingdom, London's Company House, Echo file omo annual retention. A hosika omo file so omo de investment e wo port no e $761 million. But omo ba Ghana no, Ghana mpanimfo aba mo mpanimfo ka kire say investment Meridian for no yem e $1.5 billion. The almost half of Scano. Rabasa according to Fobia. International Finance Corporation IFC, a private sector arm of the World Bank, admitted to Africa Confidential magazine that the cost of the project again decreased to $667 million by June 2016. But the news never filtered back to Ghana's parliament so it could adjust its tax concession. In March 2016, the National Democratic Congress government asked parliament to approve $982 million in tax relief for Meridian Port Services over 10 years, a sum that amazed majority of MPs. Majority of MPs. The total investment in the new container terminal in Ghana's books is $1.5 billion. But at the London office, it is $667 million. So French investigators continue to ask this question: where did the rest of the money go? The way a Ghana charge sheet in the Edaho, the French court, criminal court, that's to say a dito go the enemy or differ or yaman no quine, a man into ya almost there be Yendi Ghana ne the Akana so ne bowa ya charge one kasa for fraud and corruption near hunu. Maybe a mrado befa. And any desire case yachi.